Hi everyone. Here again we are with Servlets and JSPs. Okay, so in this video we are going to mainly discuss about login form. Here I have a database, a table. My database name is userdb and the table name is user. User ID is integer type, primary key auto increment, and first name, last name, email and password, all of them are varchar. This is the login page. As you can see, this is pure HTML, and the flow of the program is somewhat like, as soon as this button is clicked, it should go to the login servlet, which will act as our controller, where we will be writing all the business logic for it. Okay, and in login servlet we are mainly going to do three steps: getting the data from the page from HTML, then we will verify whether that data is available in the database or not. So basically, in the second step we will write JDBC code to verify whether this data is available in this table or not. And for that we will be writing a separate class called user.dao, and in that user.dao we will have a method called verify user, and this verify user will take user ID and password. In this case, user ID can be the email and password of the user, and using that data it will connect with database. In this case we are using MySQL database. It will connect with the database and then receive the data from the database, and it will check whether that data is available in the database or not. And if the data is available in the database, that means if these two values are available as any rows, then it will return true, otherwise it will return false. So we will use that method here to check if it is available. That means if it is returning true, it means it is available. If it is returning false, if it is, then it means that it is not available. And if the data is available, we will forward it to a success page. If the data is not available, then we will forward it to a failure page. So this is the broad idea of what we are going to do, guys. Let us start. Okay guys, so let us first create our HTML page. Okay, you can right click on the project name directly and choose this option called HTML, which will automatically place that file within the web app folder here. Or you can right click on this web app folder and go to new and choose HTML. In both the cases, that file will be placed inside the web app folder. I'm doing it by choosing it on my project name. New HTML file, and I'm choosing this file name as login.html. Okay, so this is the basic structure of login, and let me write it as user login page as my title of the web page. And here I'm going to have a very simple form. It is going to have just two fields and two labels and a button. So okay, I just used a shortcut which is available on Eclipse. You just have to type a little and then press Control space so that your Eclipse helps you fill it. Okay, and in this form we are going to include two labels. So first label, okay, and the label is email, and for this label our input tag is of type text, and we want to give it a name. Okay, we'll discuss that later. Okay, so that was our text, and then we also need another label, and here we need a password and an input for that. And for this, we are going to use password as the type. Okay, so the idea is when the type user is typing something for this particular field, the user is not a the typed password is not visible to anyone else. That is the idea. So then we need one more input field, input tag, but this time we won't be presenting it as a field, but rather we will be presenting it as a button. So I'm choosing submit as a type, and I want one more input tag which will be acting as reset. So type is reset. Okay, so this is the very basic form. Let us test how it looks onto our page. Okay, for executing, as we discussed earlier, we just have to right click on this login.html page, go to run on server, or you can right click on the file in the project explorer, right click, run on server, or you can also just click this. Okay, here you can see that this is our most shortcut, and by default, because this is a dynamic web project, dynamic web application, it will just start it on server. Okay, so I'm choosing this one round, and see, it is asking you which server you want to run it on. I'm choosing 8.5 that we have installed last time. Going next, it is already chosen as our project. Click finish. Okay guys, so this is our result. Okay, so we are having the very basic form, email, password, and submit button. For those people who are having maybe a little bit of discussion doubt about what are these things, which part is label, which part is input, and etc., then let me just show you. See, the very first one is label, this much, and label always is presented as a text. Okay, and then you have this input tag. Input tag with type equal to text is presented as this, which is this text box where we can type, where the user can type. So suppose that when I'm clicking here, it will allow me to type something. So suppose I want to write, let us say my email address. Okay, I can type it. In the same way, the next one is password, and that password is coming because of this label. Okay, and then we have one more text box, and this text box is coming from this input tag. Okay, input tag with type is equal to password. The difference between password type input and text type input is that it will give you uh, it will also take text data, but the only thing is that that text is masked uh, with some other symbols, like in this case I am typing, let us say, see, I have just typed my name Vikas, but it is presented as dots, and which symbol it is choosing, that totally depends on which browser you are using. Okay, so that is your password type of a field. This is also a text field, but it is masking that particular text in the form of dots. Okay, and then comes the next one. They are clearly looking like buttons. Okay, and both of those buttons are also created with the help of input tag. As you can see, this is the input tag with type is equal to submit, that is this one, and you can see that when I gave type equal to submit with all small letters only, but the name of this button or the text of this button is automatically given as submit with capital S. Okay, that is the default behavior of input tag with type submit. The same rule applies to input tag with type reset, where we are giving this value as reset, type attribute value as reset, but the button's text is assigned as reset with R capital. And not only the text, not only the name, they also come with default behaviors. What are the default behaviors? When you click on the submit button, the data of this particular value, this particular field, as well as the data of this particular field will be taken and sent to another location or another resource, another file, another Java code, Okay, and that Java code we will be writing here in action attribute. So this submit button is linked to the form tags action attribute. Okay, so that is something that we are going to see, but let us do some basic experimentation with these two submit buttons. Okay, as well as these two input tags. Okay, so what we will do is, let me put it side so that you can see both the programs side by both the things side by side. Okay, so suppose that I don't want this email to be looking like a plain blank email text box, but rather I want to have a have some text to be visible on the box uh, so that it gives the hint to the user that they have to type some email address here. Okay, for that, for this first input tag we can provide a attribute called placeholder, and we can give it some basic value. So suppose that I'm giving, or let us say I'm giving a sample one, let us say john@gmail.com. Okay, I'm saving it and I'm going to the browser page. I'm reloading this page, and you see this is the one. Okay, we can, as soon as user clicks on it, this data will be lost and user can type their own content. So suppose I'm click on it, see, it is, yeah, it is not lost, it is still there, but as soon as you start typing, that will be lost. So I'm typing, see, that particular value is gone. That is the idea. Okay, there is one more thing that we can do. Instead of writing placeholder here as the attribute, if you are using value as the attribute, then the same value will be visible as already written text in that particular field. Let me save this file, and I am coming to the page and refresh, and I want to observe that this thing is not a background text, but rather this is actually typed text. You can also select it, you can make changes if you want, everything, or you can just select all, delete, and then type your text. Okay, so these are some of the tweaks with respect to your input field. Input in the sense the field where user can type some data and we can collect that data. Another small tweak that you can do with the submit buttons or reset button is that for submit button you can give a different name. Like in this particular case, this is a login.html page, and so this is basically, here user has to enter the details of email and password, and then they have to log in. And for that purpose, we want, it will be more meaningful if this button is saying it's a login. Okay, and so we will give an attribute called value for this input tag and give it the name called login. Okay, now when we save it and then refresh this, I want you to see that this button's name or the button's text will be changed to login. Okay, and this is still showing. We don't want this data to be shown by default. We want it to be as the background text which can be edited by the user, so we will make it as placeholder. Okay, this is what happened. Let me save it. Yes, now it is updated. Okay, so that is a brief idea. Another small idea about a reset button. Suppose that I have typed or something. Okay, um, and then I also have typed or something, and I don't remember exactly what I have typed, and I made a mistake. Okay, I want to correct it. I want both of the fields to be cleared. Then I have to click on the reset button. It will automatically clear both the field values. Okay, as you can see, it will go the value back, take the value back to the default. Okay, that is the small experiment. Now that is all about the HTML part of the experiment. Now let us go ahead and do our actual project. Okay, which is this. When we click on the login button, it has to go to login servlet. And what is login servlet? It is just a Java code, okay, Java type, Java program, Java file, which will do the following steps. Okay, so let us first create our servlet, which will do the job for us. Okay, so in this project, we are going to create a file called login servlet. You just have to choose your project name, right click, new, servlet. Okay, and here I'm choosing the package name as, let us say, com.ts. Okay, com.vikas. Wait, let me check if that package is already there. Yes, Vikas is already there. Okay, where I have already put this register servlet class. Okay, we are going to put our login servlet in the same page, in the same package. Okay, so I'm choosing servlet as the type and com.vikas, and the class name is login servlet. Okay, and then I'm going to go next, and as discussed earlier, this is the URL mapping which will be visible in the address bar at the time of execution. You can also change it to something else that we will discuss maybe in the next video. Next, here, as we discussed earlier, we will not be including these constructors, but and also we will not be including this do post. We will include this do get, and click finish. And I want you to observe the kind of code that is generated. Okay, this is actually looks a little bit big and etc. For now, let us remove these comment lines. We don't need them. And I want you to observe that this part is called the URL mapping, and this is the exact part which was visible at the time of creation of that servlet. Okay, and this is the doGet method. Okay, and in this doGet method we are going to write our code where which part will be executed when login button is clicked. So as we discussed in the ping, as we discussed here, when the login button is clicked, this part has to be executed. Login servlet has to be executed. If this has to be executed, then it has to be connected. This class has to be connected to the login form. How do we connect it? To connect it, we just have to type that login servlet class URL mapping, which is this one, this part. We have to copy that. As for beginners, I recommend copying it, but as you are practicing it, you can just type it. Okay, so make sure that you are copying this part just after the slash part in the web servlet annotation at the rate symbol, annotation symbol. Okay, copy this part and go to your login.html, and here in the action attribute value, paste it. So what we are doing basically here is that when user clicks on this login button, then it will automatically try to go and find whether there is a login servlet Java program available in the project. If it is available, it will go to the doGet method of that particular class. Okay, so what exactly is happening here? It will take the data, it will take the data from here, and that data will be sent as a request from your browser to the login servlet, which is our server code running on Tomcat server. Okay, so that is what is happening here. So that we have now connected our login page to our login servlet class. In login servlet class, what do we do? In login servlet class, we will be getting the data that is presented in the text in the login page, and we will be taking the data and presenting it back to the user. Okay, so let's say for the meanwhile, I will just uh, get the data as we already discussed in the previous video. We will get the data, we will present that data back to the user just to check whether it is working or not. Okay, so first step is get the data from the user. Whenever I say user, you can always imagine the HTML page that we have written. Okay, in future we can also try writing JSP page and receiving the data from there. Okay, and the second step that we are going to do is show the data as a greeting to the user on HTML page just for checking. Okay, so let us get the data. What kind of data we have? We have input tag password as well as input tag text. But if you remember from the last video, guys, if we want to get these input text box data from HTML to our servlet code, then we have to have one more attribute, and that is called name attribute. So let us provide the name attribute to both the input fields. So I'm providing name attribute, and here I'm going to provide the nickname for this input tag as user email. This is the name I'm choosing. Just for our clarity purpose, I will give email with E capital so that I can clearly see that it is user email. Okay, and for the password also, let me give the name attribute so that I can give a nickname to this input field as user pass. Okay, so these are the two names that I'm using, and these are the name attributes value. That means the nickname of this password and nickname of this uh, email text field we can use in our login servlet. So let us write it. We know we just have to use request.get parameter. So we will use that request.get parameter and supply the user email nickname to this. Okay, and we know that it will get us the value. Okay, for now, in the last video we have just printed this directly onto the page. Okay, what was the procedure that we have used? So what we are going to do, this request.get parameter will get the value that is entered by the user at the time of execution in the field. Which field? Okay, so at this input field, if the user is entering something, we have given the nickname to this particular field as user email and nickname to this particular field as user pass. Okay, and so because I'm using user email as the get parameter value, I will be getting this user email value. Okay, and why it is called parameter, that we will see in just during the execution. Okay, so first of all, let me say here as string email is equal to that value. So basically what I am trying to do here is whatever value it returns, I'm going to save it in this variable called email. Okay, and the same thing we will do for password. Request dot get parameter and supply what, the nickname or the name attribute value of our input password. Okay, so this is the value, copy, and I'm pasting it here. Okay, we have collected both the values and we are going to use those values to greet to the user. And as we discussed earlier, we just need print writer object to do this job. Okay, so let us create print writer object. We know print writer object is available in java.io package. Let us import it. Okay, and then for print writer, I'm using the variable name as reference variable as out is equal to. How to get this particular object? We have to use response object, which is our uh, object that this do get method is receiving as a parameter. Okay, so on that response we will just call getWriter method, and it will give us the printWriter object. And with the help of that printWriter object, we will be called just using the print statement or print method call, and we will supply whatever we want to supply as the result. So here I want to present, let us say, using h3 tag, I want to present the welcome message to the username and password. Okay, uh, just for testing purposes again. So let us write h3 tag, and let us say welcome, and this has to be concatenated with the email value. So writing email. Okay, okay guys, let us test if it is working or not. I'm refreshing. Why I'm directly refreshing, why I'm not running here? As you can see, my Tomcat is already running. Okay, the application is already running. You just have to go here, refresh it, and then give your values. And this execution is important, guys. Try to observe what is happening. I'm typing my email and I'm typing my password. Okay, and then I'm clicking on the login button. Okay, I want you to observe one important aspect here. Of course, nothing will be happening in the code part, nothing will change in the code part, but something will be happening in the browser area, which we are going to observe. So let me expand my screen. Okay, and let me also zoom. Okay, I'm going to click on the login button. I want you to just observe this address bar. Okay, currently address bar is having what? Localhost 8080, project name, followed by login.html, which is the current HTML page. I'm clicking on the login button. Okay, of course it has failed because our login servlet is currently not provided the right way, but I want you to observe this part. Okay, see, after your localhost 8080 and after your project name, it is showing login servlet. Okay, it is showing login servlet, and what this login servlet is doing, this is showing that that is the resource, that is the Java program which is getting accessed here. And then it is showing the user email. As we discussed earlier, it will be in get method, it shows the data on the URL. Okay, so it is showing this data. So what is this user email? This user email, guys, is the name attribute value of the first input tag. Okay, that means the nickname of our email field, and it is assigned with what? It is assigned with this part. And I want you to observe that this is almost like my email address that I have entered in the form field. Okay, in the place of at the rate, we see this %40, which is just a representation of a URL representation of that symbol, and then that is followed by end symbol, followed by user pass, which is also the name attribute value of the second field, which is our password field, and it assigned with its password, which was entered by me. Okay, so what are these things? These are called as URL parameters. URL parameters. Okay, URL parameters are always composed of URL parameters are always composed of parameter name assigned with parameter value. Okay, it is how the URL parameters usually look. Okay, and that is the example that you can see here. You can see user email, which is a parameter variable, parameter name, URL parameter name is assigned with Vikas %40 gmail.com, where Vikas %40 gmail.com is the parameter value. And that is the reason why in our Eclipse, in our Java code, we are writing get parameter. Okay, so it is getting this particular parameter that we are receiving in the request. So this is the request URL. Okay, this is the request URL sent to the server, and server is receiving this request URL. In the request URL, server is receiving the parameters, and server can access these parameters with the help of get parameter method. All you have to do is supply the parameter name, and it will give you the value of the parameter. Supply the parameter name, and it will give you the value of the parameter. That is exactly what we are trying to do. Okay, so that is what we are trying to do here in these two lines. That is the reason why it is called as get parameter method. So why is there is an error? Okay, in this case, let us try to understand. When we executed our project, when we first executed our project, this servlet was not available. Okay, then we created that servlet. We created that servlet file, and it was added. So let us just re-execute this program and check if it is able to detect it. Okay, so I'm going to re-execute it. Next, finish. I want to restart the server. Okay, it is showing the same data. I am going to give the same data. Okay, you can see something, guys. You can see first of all this URL which we have just discussed, but we also see this information. One thing is definitely clear. It is printing what was presented in the login servlet file, but it is not printing it in the right format. It is printing this tag information also. It should not print the tag information, but rather it should render this data in the form of heading, which it is not doing. How to resolve this? Okay, how will we resolve it? Let us go back to login servlet. In login servlet, when we are working on simple HTML tags, I mean, like, we are not writing the full HTML code, we are not writing HTML tag, we are not writing body tag, we are not writing any of that. We are just writing one tag which has to be executed. In such cases, you can very easily get it done by by writing one method. Let me show you what that method is, and that method has to be written before you run this print writer command. Okay, this is setting the content type to HTML. What is the meaning of it? Content type. What type of content you are presenting in your response? Okay, what type of content is presented in response? That is called content type. Okay, how to do it? It is very easy. Because it has to be presented on response, we will be using response object dot set content type. Okay, and for this set content type, you have to supply a string parameter. So I'm giving double quotes, and within the double quotes you have to supply text slash HTML. That's it. If you are presenting that set content type, then this will work. The browser will understand, which is receiving the response, will understand that the content type is text slash HTML, and so it has to treat it not as text but rather as HTML tags, and so it has to render the internal content as the HTML markup of the effect of H3. Okay, so let us go back and test it. Okay, I'm refreshing it. Now see, guys, this looks like a heading. That's it for this session's video, guys, and we'll meet again in another video where we'll discuss a little bit more than this.